What if humans had 4 arms instead of 2?
From the moment humans descended from the trees, stood upright, and developed 2 hands to grasp tools. Hands have become a symbol of intelligence, manufacturing ability, and control over the world. 2 hands are one of the key features that helped Homo sapiens outperform other species in the evolutionary chain. But suppose an evolutionary mutation or a human branch parallel to us developed 2 more arms, bringing the total to 4. That small biological change would trigger a series of huge changes in the way humans think, operate societies, make tools, organize education, build cultures, and shape the future. In this article, we will explore this hypothetical consequence comprehensively from the perspectives of science, evolutionary biology, sociology, technology, and philosophy. Part 1. Hypothetic evolution. How could humans have 4 arms? To understand the prospect of 4-armed humans, we must first analyze whether such evolution is possible, and if so, how it would occur. 1.1. Vertebrate limb structure. Most terrestrial vertebrates, including humans, have 4 limbs to in front, 2 in back. This anatomical structure, called tetrapod, first appeared about 375 million years ago in lobe-finned fish. From this template, evolution has framed the biology of terrestrial animals: 2 forelimbs and 2 hind limbs, no more, no less. So if humans had extra arms, either the hind limbs would have transformed into hands or a new pair of limbs would have grown. This would require an extremely rare mutation in genes that control body growth, especially the Hox genes, a group of genes that control the formation of the body axis and the position of the main parts. 1.2. Natural mutation model. A plausible hypothesis is that the 3rd and 4th arms grew from the chest or hip region, like insects or some other naturally bizarre creatures. For example, the octopus has 8 completely independent limbs. However, in vertebrates, growing new limbs is almost impossible. But if an ancient human branch possessed a Hox mutation that caused the body to grow an extra pair of limbs from the lower rib region, and this mutation was not fatal in childhood, and also brought a survival advantage, for example, faster fruit picking, better tool making, then it could be maintained and spread through the population. 1.3. The possibility of artificial influence. Today, gene editing science such as CRISPR has laid the foundation for the ability to directly intervene in the expression of Hox genes, opening up the prospect of humans being created with more limbs than normal. Experiments on mice and zebrafish have shown that activating or deactivating Hox genes at the right time can cause extra limb bones to grow or turn arms into legs or legs into arms. Although not yet performed in humans, in theory, there is no absolute genetic barrier to humans having 4 arms. If humans actively redesign their bodies as a technological evolution, then 4-armed humans are no longer fantasy, but the product of bioengineering. 1.4. Interaction with mythology and cultural symbols. Interestingly, many ancient cultures, such as Hinduism, have described gods with 4, 6, or 8 arms. Each hand represents a transcendent ability: power, protection, creation, destruction, healing, etc. This suggests that, in the collective unconscious, the idea of a multi-armed human has long existed as an expression of the desire for superpowers or transcendent intelligence. If humans did develop extra hands, this could make mythological motifs come true and reshape the religious, philosophical, and artistic perceptions of all humanity. We have just laid the foundation for the 4-armed human hypothesis from the perspective of evolution, developmental biology, and symbolic culture. In the next part, we will delve into the anatomical and neurological changes. How can the body support and control 4 arms effectively? Part 2. Anatomy and neurology. If a human were to gain 4 arms, it would not be a simple change in appearance, but would require the entire body from bones, muscles, blood vessels to the central nervous system to undergo significant restructuring to support stable function and operation. In this section, we will analyze the major changes in anatomy and the nervous system that would be required to support a body with 4 arms to function effectively as a complete unit. 2.1. Bone structure. Growing an extra pair of limbs. Let's say that the extra pair of arms grew from the sides below or above the pelvis to keep the 2 main arms in their current position: shoulders. This would require the addition of an extra shoulder joint, along with a collarbone, humerus, elbow, wrist, and hand like a normal hand. There are two possibilities. Position 1, grow extra arms from the lower ribs, with the second shoulder joint anchored to the rib cage. Position 2, grow from the pelvis like hind limbs, converting the lower limbs into forelimbs similar to some primates with extended limbs for climbing, or grow entirely new limbs in the abdomen or back. The big problem here is that the dense muscle and bone density in the upper body would be problematic without redistribution. For example, if 2 extra arms were grown but the rib cage remained intact, the arms would bump into each other during movement. To solve this, the sternum would have to be widened laterally. The rib cage would be flattened, or it would move in a horizontal oval shape instead of a round one. 2.2. Muscles, joints, ligaments, and tendons. Forearms mean double the number of control muscles such as the deltoids, biceps, triceps, forearms, hand muscles, and the micromuscular systems that support finger movements. This results in significantly increased body mass, affecting movement, energy expenditure, and endurance. The secondary arms need independent muscle groups, possibly located in the lower back or flanks, to avoid conflict with the primary arms. The tendons and ligaments must be redesigned so that they do not stretch in the wrong direction and cause injury, especially when performing simultaneous activities. This also shifts the entire center of gravity of the body, which is located near the navel, to a position slightly toward the back or chest, requiring the pelvic and spinal systems to be reinforced to support the load. 2.3. Blood vessels, circulation, and respiration. The new arms will require additional arteries and veins to supply blood to the new muscle groups. The heart must work harder to ensure blood supply to the new body part. The possibility of physiological enlargement of the heart, or the heart having 4 chambers working unevenly by region. Similarly, because the new limbs use oxygen and glucose to function, the lungs will have to supply more oxygen to the blood, leading to increased vital capacity. This may force the chest structure to expand or change shape to accommodate larger lungs. 2.4. Brain reorganizing the motor cortex. This is the most complicated part. The human brain is already extremely optimized for controlling both hands. Each hemisphere controls the opposite hand, right controls left, and vice versa, via the motor cortex in the frontal lobe. If there are 4 hands, then the motor cortex must expand at least twice as much, creating 2 additional independent control areas for the extra pair of hands. The corpus callosum, the structure connecting the 2 hemispheres, must also expand to synchronize signals between all 4 motor areas. The connection between the motor cortex, somatosensory cortex, and cerebellum needs to be strengthened to process reflexes, sensations, and balance. It is likely that the brain must develop an additional coordinate logic layer to prioritize each hand, avoiding behavioral conflicts. For example, 2 hands doing one thing, 2 hands doing something else but not affecting each other. 2.5. Eyes, vision, and sensory coordination. The 2 human eyes provide a 210-degree field of view, mostly focused forward. If there were 4 arms, especially if the 2 extra arms were on the sides, then humans would need increased peripheral vision, or the ability to divide visual attention to coordinate 4 arm actions without constantly rotating the head. There could be a phenomenon of independent visual navigation by arm activity area, for example, one eye tracking the main arm, the other eye tracking the extra arm, similar to the way pigeons process information when moving and foraging at the same time. 2.6. Environmental acceptance, development, or elimination. All of the above changes are only valuable if the environment creates conditions for 4-armed people to survive better, for example, hunting, making tools, fighting more effectively. The mutation does not reduce reproductive lifespan, that is, 4-armed people still give birth, maintaining the species. The population accepts the abnormal individual, avoiding being eliminated due to being too strange. The population accepts the abnormal individual, avoiding being eliminated due to being too strange. We have just analyzed in depth the anatomical and neurological aspects required for the human body to survive and function with 4 arms. In the next section, we will consider the changes in movement, balance, and physical interaction with the world when having more arms. Is it an advantage or a burden? Part 3. Balance, movement, and physical interaction. The addition of 2 arms to the human body not only affects the skeletal structure and brain, but also has a strong impact on the entire ability to move, maintain balance, body reflexes, and interact with the physical world. In this section, we will analyze the physiological and physical consequences that a body with 4 arms must face in everyday life, from walking, standing upright, to sitting, running, climbing, and reflexes when losing balance. 3.1 Body center of gravity, the basic problem of stability. In anatomy, the current human body center of gravity is located around the abdomen between the pelvis and the chest. With 2 arms present, the mass of the upper limbs is distributed evenly over the shoulders, helping to maintain balance when standing, walking, and moving quickly. When 2 more arms are added, especially if they grow from the sides or the front of the abdomen, the center of gravity is pushed away from the midline, causing an imbalance of gravity when standing or sitting upright. The body must tilt slightly backwards to compensate for the weight of the 2 additional arms in front. This directly affects the posture of the spine. If the additional arms grow from the back near the shoulder blades or waist, the center of gravity is pushed back, causing a misalignment and forcing the abdomen to brace itself to hold the axis. From this, it can be inferred that if humans had 4 arms, the basic posture would change completely, maybe slightly hunched, slightly curved spine, or have an intermediate posture between bipedalism and ape-like quadrupedalism. 3.2 Walking, running, jumping, and dynamic balance. The 2 arms currently help humans maintain balance when moving quickly. For example, when running, the arms swing back and forth to maintain the body's axis. Adding 2 more arms would complicate this task. 4 upper limbs moving together can cause the body to oversway if not well coordinated. The brain needs to determine the alternating movement pattern, which arm swings when, which arm stays still to balance, which is equivalent to a complex kinematic problem. In sports such as climbing, long jump, acrobatics, having 4 arms can be a huge advantage if coordinated properly. A person with 4 arms can grab 4 points on a cliff instead of 2, climb twice as fast. Hold 2 hands on the bar, the other to push the body up. Gymnastics will be completely different. But it is also important to note, without training from a young age, 4 arms will not be synonymous with flexibility. Coordination disorders can cause hand entanglement like a normal person trying to ride a bike with 4 legs. 3.3 Reflexes, falls, and natural defense. The fall reflex is an important biological mechanism. For example, when you stumble, your arms will automatically come out to block you to reduce head injury. If you have 4 arms, which hand reflex will be activated? The main hand or the secondary hand? This depends on how the brain prioritizes its activity. It is possible that the 2 hands support each other instead of the body if the brain does not distinguish the reflex correctly. However, if the nervous system adapts well, 4 hands will create an excellent reflex cushion, helping to reduce injuries when falling or colliding, even being used to bounce away from the falling point. In combat or dangerous situations, a person with 4 hands can use 2 hands to defend, 2 hands to attack at the same time. React simultaneously to many directions, superior survival advantage. However, it is also easy to overload the reflex if the brain does not prioritize the right hand, the right task. For example, in an accident, all hands react differently can be counterproductive. Current physical spaces are designed for 2-handed people: desks, chairs, car doors, kitchens, bedrooms. If there are 4 arms, many things will have to change. The chair needs to have armrests on both sides, even extending the backrest area if the auxiliary arm grows behind. The desk will be wider, possibly dividing the area for each arm like the control area of a pilot or technician. Sleeping will be more difficult if the 4 arms are in asymmetrical positions, easily leading to insomnia or muscle pain without a specialized cushion. It is likely that the 4-arm person will have a new default posture, slightly hunched over, the main arms in front, the auxiliary arms slightly bent at the side like an octopus when moving. 3.5 Ability to interact with complex environments. Hands are not only for holding objects, but also important tools for exploring, discovering, and interacting with the environment. A person with 4 hands will be able to explore 4 points at the same time, helping to speed up the analysis of unfamiliar environments. Create stereoscopic reflexes, that is, touching, feeling, and examining an object from multiple angles at the same time. In dangerous conditions such as mines, space exploration, explosions, etc., a person with 4 hands can hold a lamp, hold on, manipulate, and hold objects at the same time, something that is impossible for a person with 2 hands. We have clearly seen that having 4 hands is not just an additional tool, but entails a comprehensive revolution in movement and physical interaction. While the advantages are obvious, they come with coordination challenges, changes in body structure, and psychomotor adaptations. In Part 4, we'll delve into the social, technological, and cultural implications. How would a 4-armed society form, function, and evolve differently from current society? Part 4, Applications in Modern Society. If humans had 4 hands at the beginning of their evolutionary history, the modern world would not be the same. Every field from education, labor, technology, to product design would have to adapt to or even be completely shaped by human multi-handedness. 1. Changes in work and labor productivity. In a world with 4 hands, multitasking will become the norm. An engineer can assemble a circuit board, adjust computer software, hold a component in one hand, and a measuring tool in the other. Physical multitasking is no longer a rare skill, but the default. In factories, labor productivity skyrockets. Workers can operate multiple machines at the same time, performing multiple processes simultaneously without the need for team coordination as before. In agriculture, a farmer can operate machinery, prune, and check for pests all in the same cycle. In service, a hairdresser can use 2 hands to comb and style, and the other to use a blow dryer or apply chemicals. Similarly, a surgeon can become a super precision machine by simultaneously operating a scalpel, forceps, suctioning fluid, and suturing tissue, reducing the need for assistance. 2. 4-hand education and training. Children will be taught 4-hand coordination skills from a very early age. Textbooks, educational games, and school desks are all designed to take advantage of parallel manipulation. Writing may no longer be a single line, but 2 parallel lines written with the front and back hands. At higher levels, engineering, medical, and design students will be trained in partitioning skills. Each hand is specialized for a specific type of task. For example, the front left hand does the main operation, the back left hand holds the position, the front right hand controls the device, the back right hand does the auxiliary work. Even the Olympic competitions could add a 4-handed coordination content where contestants demonstrate their ability to solve 2 Rubik's Cubes at the same time, draw 2 different pictures, or play a musical instrument in pairs, for example, playing the piano and drumming at the same time. 3. Redesigning technology and interfaces. The 4-handed world requires a completely different technological interface. The traditional keyboard for only 2 hands will be replaced by a 360 input pad with contact areas for all 4 limbs. The computer mouse can have up to 4 independent control buttons. Each hand has its own cursor. Mobile devices will have a separate modular design. A screen is held in the back hand. The front hand interacts. Virtual reality glasses, smart glasses, or touch panels will be developed in a 4-dimensional direction. Each hand interacts with a separate interface. In architecture, door handles, railings, light switches, chairs all need to be designed for people with 4 hands to use naturally at the same time. Offices can have an arc structure, allowing all hands to reach evenly without turning the body. 4. Fashion and behavioral culture. Fashion will change profoundly. Clothes, jackets, dresses, uniforms will have 4 sleeves, but it will be more complicated because the 2 pairs of hands can differ in position and mobility. Materials need to be flexible in the back, armpits, and shoulders to support multi-directional movement. In addition, the culture of greeting and expression will also be different. Instead of simply shaking hands, people can create multi-handed interaction rituals. For example, the front to hands touching each other, the back to hands placed on each other's shoulders as a symbol of trust or respect. In terms of aesthetics and body language, dancers can perform choreographic movements simultaneously with 2 sets of hands, creating a surreal visual effect. In movies, 4-armed characters have become the norm instead of the current oddity. 5. Social challenges and adjustments. Despite many benefits, society also needs to adapt to specific difficulties. People who cannot control all 4 arms equally due to birth, injury, or disease may be considered incompetent, leading to the risk of discrimination. Social security systems, rehabilitation, and assistive devices also need to be developed in parallel to ensure fairness for all individuals. Four-armed people not only change the way individuals live, but also reshape the entire social structure, from schools to factories, from desks to wedding dresses. The ability to process in parallel with four hands will blur the lines between individual and group, between manual and machine, between physical limits and creative thinking. Part 5, Psychology and Brain Evolution. If humans had four arms, the changes would not only occur in the muscles or skeleton, but also permeate the way the brain processes information, the way we perceive the world, and the way society shapes behavior. Currently, the human motor cortex is optimized for arms to legs and other parts. If two more arms were added, the brain would have to restructure the motor map. Each new arm would require an independent cluster of control neurons and at the same time connect to the corresponding sensory area to receive signals from the skin, muscles, and joints. Controlling four arms in unison would require a higher level of signal separation, similar to a conductor controlling four different groups of instruments at the same time. Connections between the two hemispheres of the brain would become denser, as each hand could coordinate crosswise with the hand on the opposite or same side. If the four-handed trait had developed millions of years ago, the human motor cortex could have been significantly larger than it is today, resulting in a larger skull and greater energy expenditure. 2. Cognitive multitasking. Four hands not only allow for physical multitasking, but also involve mental multitasking. Four-handed people would develop the ability to divide attention. Each hand is responsible for a separate task, while the brain maintains the ability to monitor the whole. Parallel thinking. Instead of sequential processing, the brain can run two processes simultaneously, for example, drawing a technical diagram while taking notes. Independent response. One hand can react to an unexpected situation without interrupting the task of the other hand. However, this can also create mental pressure. The brain has to process twice as much data from four limbs, increasing the risk of cognitive fatigue if not properly rested. 3. Impact on behavior and personality. The nature of having four arms will change the way people interact with each other. Body language is more complex. Four arms can express multiple meanings at the same time. One pair of arms can show friendliness, the other pair can keep distance or protect oneself. Extroversion can increase due to better physical interaction. People with four arms can be more confident in communication, while poor coordinators tend to withdraw. A clear differentiation of skills. In society, there may appear a class of master coordinators, people who control four arms almost perfectly and are considered valuable human resources. In addition, social pressure can also cause some people to suffer from performance anxiety syndrome, the feeling that they must use all four hands at all times, otherwise they will be undervalued. 4. Social evolution and biotechnological synchronization. Over thousands of generations, the use of four hands will not only shape the brain, but also influence the way humans invent and create. Tools and weapons will utilize all four hands at the same time from the initial design. Performing arts will develop completely new forms, sculpting multiple points at the same time, playing multi-layered musical instruments, or painting for pictures at the same time. Brain-computer interface (BCI) technology will integrate parallel control of four robotic hands, turning humans into super multitaskers in virtual and mixed reality environments. If this evolution had taken place in prehistoric times, human society could have surpassed the current progress by hundreds of years because the productivity and speed of innovation would have been superior. 5. Impact on self-awareness and human philosophy. The ability to multitask would change the sense of self. A person with four arms could see himself not as just an individual, but as a system operating in parallel. This opens up philosophical questions. Is the self divided into multiple streams of consciousness? If each arm could perform complex tasks independently, would we feel like we were controlling multiple copies of ourselves? Would the meaning of labor and creativity change if each individual's basic capacity doubled? Philosophy, religion, and art would seek to reinterpret the concept of human, no longer based on the current limitations of two arms, two eyes, two legs. General conclusion: the prospect of humans with forearms is both a scientific and philosophical scenario. It would not only affect biology and anatomy, but also reshape the brain, behavior, culture, technology, and self-perception. If this trait had existed from the beginning, the world today would be completely different. The pace of progress would be faster, social structures would be different, and the line between humans and machines would be blurred. However, along with the advantages come adaptational pressures, cognitive fatigue, and new social problems. Although hypothetical, the four-armed human scenario makes us realize that body shape is not just a biological matter, it is the foundation of civilization.
We just explored an interesting hypothesis. What if humans had four arms? From evolution, anatomy, society, to psychology and philosophy, everything would change profoundly. Thank you for joining me on this imaginary journey. What do you think are the biggest benefits and challenges of having four arms? Share your thoughts. If you find it interesting, don't forget to share and follow to discover more what-if scenarios. Goodbye.